The lecture that changed everything. Dr. Jake Morrison stepped off the transport vessel and into the luminous atrium of the Galactic Institute of Advanced Sciences. The building shimmered in the early light of Centauri Prime, a crystalline structure that bent the purples and silvers of the morning sky into a kaleidoscope of alien beauty. His boots echoed on the metallic floor as towering figures of every conceivable physiology passed him by. A being of molten stone floated above the ground, humming with energy. Another, draped in robes of woven mist, paused only briefly to scan Jake with a flicker of a sensory tendril before gliding past. Jake adjusted the strap on his bag, heart pounding. He was not just a visitor. He was the first human professor appointed to this hallowed place of interstellar learning. "Professor Morrison," a voice called behind him. He turned to find a young woman approaching with a tablet clutched to her chest. She wore the Institute's research blue uniform, and her black hair was pinned back in a practical knot. Her name tag read Zara Kim. "I'm Zara," she said with a nervous smile. "Your research assistant. Welcome to the Galactic Institute." Jake smiled. "Thank you, Zara. I'm honored to be here." "You're about to make history," she said as they began walking. "But, just a warning, your topic didn't exactly inspire enthusiasm among the students. They didn't like my subject." Zara hesitated. Some of them laughed. Others were confused. "I think they expected you to lecture on weapons tech, maybe human strategy or your neural warfare techniques." "But bugs?" "Insects," Jake corrected gently. "I picked them for a reason." Zara nodded. "I believe in you." But some of the students, especially the Corinth and the Codex species, they're not easy to impress. By the time they reached his office, Jake was already thinking ahead to his lecture. Everything was set. Holograms. Footage. Comparative data. But none of it would matter if they refused to take him seriously. That night in the Institute's vast dining hall, Jake encountered the first taste of alien mockery firsthand. 3 students at a nearby table, one of them a massive gray-skinned Corinth with 4 arms, spoke loudly enough for his translator to pick up. "The human professor believes insects are galaxy-worthy," the Corinth student boomed. "Tiny dirt crawlers. What's next? A dissertation on moss?" Jake kept his eyes on his tray, but the words echoed. Still, he was resolved. He didn't sleep that night. He reviewed every clip, every metric, every quote from Earth's entomologists and biologists. He knew the truth: Earth's insects weren't just interesting, they were miraculous. Intelligent. Precise. Unparalleled. The next morning, the lecture hall was packed. Tiered seating rose around Jake like an arena. Alien students of every size, shape, and structure focused their attention on him. Some sneered. Others whispered. Vexer, the Corinth from the dining hall, lounged in his seat, for arms crossed, his granite jaw set in a grin of ridicule. Jake activated the holodisplay. The lights dimmed. "Good morning," he said. "My name is Dr. Jake Morrison. Today, I will discuss the remarkable capabilities of terrestrial arthropods." Someone laughed aloud. Vexer's voice rumbled, "Insects, human." "Truly?" Jake nodded. "Yes. Earth's insects. And I ask only for your attention." He tapped the remote. A shimmering, enlarged hologram of a common ant appeared in the air. "This is a worker ant," he said. "It weighs 2 milligrams. About the weight of a speck of dust. But watch." The footage changed. The ant lifted a massive crumb and carried it with ease. "That's 50 times its body weight," Jake said. "If you could do that, you'd lift a grab bike over your head and jog uphill." "Strength is common," Krillith, an arachnoid student, clicked from her seat. "My young hatchlings bend metal." "Of course," Jake said. "But ants do more than lift." He cued the bee video. "This bee is dancing. Not randomly. She's giving her hive exact coordinates to nectar, direction, distance, and quality, all via movement and vibration. All processed by a brain the size of a grain of sand. Some of the laughter faded. Next came monarch butterflies, navigating a 3,000-mile journey using no technology, only solar position, magnetic fields, and ancestral memory. The students leaned forward. Then the bombardier beetle exploded onto the screen. Chemical defense, Jake explained. This beetle stores two harmless chemicals. When threatened, it mixes them, creating a boiling explosion that fires with pinpoint accuracy. All this happens in milliseconds. Hexorin, the warrior caste student, growled. Timing like that requires advanced control systems. Exactly, Jake said. The termite mound followed. A tower of organic architecture with internal climate control, waste disposal, food chambers, all engineered by instinct. And this, Jake added, showing real lab footage, is problem solving. These termites encountered a broken path. They tested, built, adjusted. They built a new solution. Silence. No laughter now. Even Vexer stared in thought. Jake smiled to himself. But he wasn't done. He showed leaf-cutter ants farming fungus, rotating crops, managing nutrients. He explained how honeybees hold elections, debating through dance, reaching mathematically optimal decisions that outperformed galactic AI. KCA, from the Codex species, clicked, evolved instinct. Not intelligence. Jake nodded. So let me challenge that. He showed footage of bees evaluating hive locations, comparing, arguing, persuading, switching preferences as data changed. This is logic, Jake said. This is consensus democracy. And it works. Finally, he dimmed the holodisplay. You mocked insects, Jake said. But maybe you mocked what you didn't understand. The room was quiet. Even the back row mockers sat in reflection. Then Vexer stood. We underestimated your insects, Professor, he said. They are formidable. For mindless creatures. And that's when it happened. A soft chirp emitted from a nearby communications console. It translated a chemical pulse. Unknown origin. Non-technological. Decoded signal reads. We are not mindless. The Queen hears. Jake frowned. Zara stared at the console. Krillith recoiled. Professor, she whispered. That came from Earth. And beneath the soil of Earth, deep in the endless networks of hives and tunnels and chambers. A presence stirred. The nest awakens. Deep beneath the crust of Earth, in chambers older than most cities and more labyrinthine than the catacombs of lost civilizations, a signal echoed through the hive networks. It was not made of sound. It pulsed through scent, through vibration, through the subtle shift of pheromonal frequencies across hundreds of miles of connected nests. To humans, it was undetectable. But to the one who ruled them all, it was unmistakable. High Queen Eriza stirred. Her body, longer than a limousine and armored with plates of chitin that shimmered faintly under the bioluminescent glow of fungal lanterns, had not moved in decades. She did not need to. She did not crawl. She commanded. Billions moved because she dreamed. But now, she was awake. Chemical impressions flooded her sensory cortex. Alien languages. Emotional ridicule. The phrase, mindless creatures, repeated, echoed. Scorn directed at her children. The projection of weakness. The assumption of insignificance. She uncurled one leg, slowly. We are not mindless, her thoughts pulsed outward. Across the earth, hives of every type fell silent for a breath. Then, as one, they began to move. Lieutenant Amy Foster didn't believe in coincidences. She had been stationed aboard the Galactic Council's observation satellite, geosynchronous over Earth, for 3 years. Officially, her mission was cultural liaison. Unofficially, it was containment. The Council feared humanity's unpredictability, but what they didn't know was, humanity had been quietly worried about something else, Earth's insects. Lieutenant Foster, there's something happening in the Australian interior, her analyst said, eyes wide as she pointed to the sensor display. Miles of desert had become active. Not just ant colonies, beetles, termites, bees, wasps. Dozens of species, usually disconnected, were now moving in coordinated patterns. She tapped into orbital scans. Tunnels. Spirals. Hexagon fields. It looked like a structure, she whispered. They're building something. Together. In a subterranean lab under Geneva, Colonel Ryder Hale of the UN Bio-Warfare Division stared at his tablet, the coffee in his hand forgotten. Jesus Christ, he muttered. They've triggered the convergence protocol. His subordinate looked pale. I thought that was theoretical. So did we, Hale said. But this isn't local. It's global. North America. Africa. The Pacific archipelagos. Hive systems are connecting. How the hell did it start? Hale turned the screen. On it played a holographic clip from Professor Morrison's lecture. One of the students insulted the Queen, Hale said. The what? Not a queen. The Queen. Back on Centauri Prime, Jake Morrison stared at his datapad. The strange message, the Queen hears, had been confirmed by Earth's deep anomaly monitors. The chemical structure of the signal was ant in origin. Not just any ant. A convergence pattern only seen once before, during classified UN research into hive mind evolution. Zara looked pale. Are you saying your lecture woke up the ants? Jake didn't answer. He couldn't. Not yet. But inside, he was thinking of all the times he'd wondered if insects had consciousness. If they dreamed. If they could one day respond. And now. They had. Emergence Day. By the time the Galactic Council acknowledged the anomaly, it was already too late. Hive towers had risen across every continent. From the African savannas to the concrete jungles of Asia, colossal structures of biofused earth, resin, and fiber jutted skyward, glistening with a strange green sheen, pulsing with internal movement. The air shimmered around them, vibrating with low-frequency hums that defied analysis. Scientists believed them to be communication tones. Military officials called them warning sirens. On the orbiting research vessel Dalvarin, Professor Jake Morrison stood beside Vexor, Krillith, and Hexorin, all watching the rotating feed from Earth's satellites. They're building a grid, Jake whispered. Not randomly. Not instinctively. This is intentional. Hexorin's eyes narrowed. This is strategic construction. Symmetrical positioning. Defensive geometry. Or offensive, Krillith corrected, clicking nervously. Zara Kim pushed closer. Look at the nodes. They're equidistant, like a planetary network. They're syncing something. But for what? Vexor murmured, his earlier arrogance gone. In central Greenland, what appeared at first to be a natural ridge cracked open. Emerging from its depths came swarms of armored ants larger than house cats. They carried not food, but coils of glowing biofiber. They connected nodes, assembled pylons. Entire ant castes emerged, builders, scouts, soldiers, carriers, and something else. Something new. Bipedal ant forms. Humanoid in shape. Gleaming with bronze exoskeletons, they moved with precision and intelligence, using articulated tools fused into their limbs. At the UN Defense Corps, Colonel Ryder Hale watched the emergence in horror. Those aren't insects, he said grimly. Those are engineers. On the opposite screen, seismic pulses echoed from beneath the Andes. They're building underground, too, a technician reported. Cities. Symmetrical, energy-conductive layouts. They're generating power from geothermal currents and solar refraction through biohelix towers. They're terraforming, Hale realized. They're turning Earth into a hive planet. As the world watched, the council deliberated. On Centauri Prime, Professor Zenthra summoned Jake Morrison to a secure conference. "You must speak to them," she said, her crystal limbs vibrating with urgency. "They responded to you." Jake hesitated. "They might not see me as one of them. I'm human." They are your planet mates," she said. "And perhaps now, your only allies." From orbit, the first swarm beacon rose into view, a spire that glowed like a lighthouse of living amber. Then it broadcast. Not in words. In patterns. Data. Images. Projections. And one central message, translated by thousands of orbiting algorithms. "We were mocked. Now we prepare. The Queen ascends." And across the galaxy, species who had once mocked the insects of Earth began to feel something they never thought they would in response to ants, bees, and beetles. Fear. Diplomacy or domination. In orbit above Earth, the Galactic Council's diplomatic carrier Suralis Dawn shimmered against the starlight. It had been hastily rerouted, its halls filled with nervous advisors and high-ranking envoys. None of them had expected a diplomatic emergency to originate from a species once dismissed as non-sentient biological fauna. But here they were, negotiating with a queen. On the primary chamber's floor stood Ambassador Thull, a three-eyed diplomat from the crystalline Ba-Zal species, surrounded by advisors from 17 star systems. Tension pulsed like a living thing. "Initiate contact," Thull commanded. From below Earth's surface, an answer came. Not through comm channels. Not through language. Through the network. On the hollow floor of the chamber, a figure began to form. Constructed from nanites and projected bioorganic matter, a towering silhouette took shape, the avatar of High Queen Eriza. Her form resembled a humanoid queen draped in semi-transparent chitin robes, her multiple arms folded with regal stillness. Her face shimmered with gold-veined symmetry, and her voice, when it came, resonated not in sound, but in thought. "I speak for the hive. I speak for the Earth." Thull stepped forward cautiously. "High Queen Eriza, we welcome you to this assembly. We seek peaceful understanding." "You seek understanding only after centuries of mockery," the Queen replied. "You labeled us pests. You insulted our purpose. Now, you call us threat. We are neither. We are inevitable. This uprising." "Not an uprising," the Queen interjected. "An awakening. We have always watched. Always calculated. Now, we reveal." Lieutenant Amy Foster, seated beside Professor Morrison and Zara Kim, leaned forward. "Your expansion is destabilizing planetary balance," Thull said carefully. "We ask for cessation of all hive tower growth until further dialogue." "Request denied," Eriza said without emotion. "Growth is survival. Survival is growth." KCA, the codec representative, activated a logic sequence. By galactic law, non-recognized emergent intelligences must submit to a sentience review process before engaging in self-directed planetary alteration. Eriza turned her golden gaze to him. "We are not emergent. We are ancient. Before your species encoded its first theorem, we built towers in the dark. Your law is built on ignorance." Then, she extended a hand. A new hologram appeared. Above Earth, 5 orbital ships, armed, watching, suddenly lost power. In silence, they drifted. Eriza's voice pulsed again. This was not an attack. It was a demonstration. No loss of life. Only potential withheld. Next time, we may not be so restrained. Silence. On the council floor, many turned to Morrison. He stepped forward, breath caught in his throat. "Your Majesty," he said carefully. "What do you want?" Eriza tilted her head. "Respect. Acknowledgement. A place among the sentient. And a voice. The Hive demands a seat at your table." Ambassador Thull's voice trembled. "And if we deny that?" Eriza did not answer with words. She simply raised a finger. And somewhere deep beneath the Amazon basin, another spire began to rise, taller than any before. A beacon. A warning. "Then Earth shall no longer be your cradle," she said. "It will become your correction." The Hive Ascendant. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. The broadcast of the Queen's demonstration, 5 deactivated orbital ships, had sent shockwaves through the stars. Not a single life lost, yet the message was absolute. This was not a threat of war. It was a declaration of parity. On Earth, the insect-built structures had begun interfacing with human systems. Without permission, yet without aggression, Hive nodes connected to global satellites, terra-mapping drones, and ancient human data vaults long thought inaccessible. And rather than corrupt, they optimized. Systems became more efficient. Power grid stabilized. Pollution dropped. "They're fixing us," Lieutenant Amy Foster muttered in disbelief. Colonel Ryder Hale stood in the United Nations security bunker, reading real-time analysis. "And they're not demanding tribute. They're not attacking. They're collaborating. Co-opting," Jake Morrison said, entering the chamber with Zara at his side. "But not out of conquest. Out of belief. They see humanity as cohabitants. And now, they want shared stewardship." In the great spire over what once was the Amazon basin, Jake stood before the Queen again, this time in person. Her humanoid form stood twice his height, wings folded behind her in luminous layers. Bioluminescent glyphs pulsed through the walls like breathing veins. "You have taught us," Jake said, "what our science never saw. What our arrogance dismissed. I believe the Council will listen now." "They will," Eriza replied. "Or they will adapt. Evolution favors neither strength nor intelligence alone. It favors response. We have responded." She raised a hand. A new symbol appeared in the air. It was the Council's banner, now joined by a silver mandible, etched between the star rings. Weeks later, on Centauri Prime, Professor Zenthra hosted a special ceremony. The Hive was granted observer status in the Galactic Council, with full review pending. For the first time in recorded galactic history, an Earth-born species other than humanity had earned a seat. Jake Morrison was named Liaison and Interspecies Ambassador. Zara Kim became Director of Hive Linguistic Integration. Colonel Hale accepted the Hive's offer to join a joint research initiative in subterranean defense systems. And in the Council chambers, before billions of interstellar viewers, High Queen Eriza's avatar appeared beside Thull and KCA. Her words were brief. "Mock us no longer. For we are many. We are one. We are the Hive Ascendant." As her voice faded, billions across the stars felt the deep vibration in their bones, not from fear, but from realization. That something beneath their notice had risen. Not as a conqueror, but as a peer. One hive, one future. The Hive's influence spread, not through conquest, but through invitation. In the months following Queen Eriza's official recognition, dozens of worlds petitioned for Hive architects to assist with ecological restoration. Failing biospheres were stabilized in weeks. Food security returned to drought-ridden systems. Microecosystems once on the brink of collapse flourished with coordinated insect-level precision. But the greatest shift wasn't technological. It was philosophical. Species across the galaxy began to reconsider their definitions of intelligence. Sentience. Worth. No longer were towering intellects or brutal military power the gold standard. Instead, whispers grew among the younger species, about harmony, balance, and the quiet genius of collective will. In a new facility orbiting the gas giant Yaver, 6, Lieutenant Amy Foster stood beside Colonel Hale and Zara Kim. In the center chamber, hive engineers, humanoid ants and beetles, worked alongside human scientists. Not in hierarchy, but in sync. Where one mind left off, another picked up. Where a human hesitated, a drone finished the task. "We've never had allies like this," Hale admitted. "Not allies," Zara said softly. "Partners." Professor Jake Morrison was now the most requested speaker in the known galaxy. His lectures no longer focused solely on Earth insects, but on emergent intelligence, on decentralized design, on trust. And in every hall he visited, students no longer laughed when they heard the word ant. At the Galactic Council Centennial Summit, Queen Eriza made her first address as a voting delegate. Her words were few. "The hive does not seek dominance. We seek resilience. Your fates are not separate from ours. We rise, not above you, but beside you. Let no voice be unheard. Let no species be dismissed. For we remember." When she stepped back, the entire chamber stood in silence. And then rose. On Earth, in a quiet garden where wildflowers danced in a summer breeze, an ant climbed a single blade of grass. Above it, the stars shimmered. It paused, antennae raised. Listening. Not to a command. But to a future. And the hive, in all its vastness, listened back. The end.